señalaron. Dijeron igualdad, pero esta vez me separaron. Dijeron mucho, pero no se olvidaron de callarse. Cuánto odio por mi piel sembraron. Dijeron historia y la tergiversaron. Dijeron guerra, muerte, odio y nos culparon. Siempre. Enfermedades y epidemias nos contagiaron. Exterminación de mi fauna complace a tus mercados. Dijeron riqueza y todos se lo robaron. Oro, platino, diamante, a la fuerza se lo llevaron. Y la actualidad es tan triste que todo aquello que dijeron es lo mismo que hoy se dice más. ¿Quién dice, quién explota, quién se beneficia? El asesino, el mismo que da las noticias. Hay una cuenta fácil que siempre me da las grandes riquezas, de dónde vienen y hacia dónde van.
Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao. Nati Dre es afroresistencia, cultura ancestral, afrodescendencia, solidaridad. Esa es la esencia, la diáspora africana eleva la conciencia, conciencia negra, universal, progresista y transcultural. Negros y mestizos revolucionando, pueblos caribeños y africanos en un solo bando. No más explotación, colonialismo interno, no más confusión, supremacía blanca en el Babilón. Soy rojo, negro y verde, afroliberación. Mientras más negro, más represión. Somos creadores, recupera tu visión. Mi misión es educar con amor, contra el silencio, vivo sin temor. Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao.
We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary. And you're going to have to keep on saying that. You're going to have to say that I am a proletarian. I am the people.
I need that Fred Douglas bro. Motherfuckers with the muscles. No strength is in the digits. Quit spitting on the bungalow. The devil got a buzz stronger than a bumble nose. Lions and impalas and they creeping through the jungle slow. Warthog, pull him over for the tail light. Heart beating fast and he begging to the jail Christ. You know the one that brothers find in the slammer. Gotta do the running man if they ever find a hammer. Check the grammar. Kelsey ain't Frazier, sitting on the couch with his wrist near a razor. The hood could be good if we love thy neighbor, but the world is so cold, no gas in the pacer. Indiana in the temple of doom. No, the slum ain't plum, it resembles a prune. Crime on the regular, look at the coons, is what they do from the treetop, silver for the spoon. No regrets, bro, we do it for the don't flex, bro, we do it for the no rest, bro, we do it for the no need to guess, bro, we do it for the no regrets, bro, we do it for the don't flex, bro, we do it for the no rest, bro, we do it for the no need to guess, bro, we do it for the
Formerly I'm Malcolm Little, but grow up into my Malcolm unknown. AP like Malcolm Middle, but figure how sun grown is more corner stores, corner pockets and blunt rolls. Get the rolling strips and you know the grip like run those. Live from where they designated for us to be at, with designated drivers to stay behind on the G-Pack. Toss money with lost money, inspired feedback, and the light come with it, baby. You see that? See that? Be that like nobody ever was. They told us to get it forever on these forever runs. Said to never be done. The height of ambition is what you leak from, and suck all that away when you get it. Know who to keep from. I'm riding in Tommy Smith, John Carlos, but my jeans are still fit from John Favardos, and I still do mean biz as far as bars go, and my roof is still nowhere near where my car go. For real.
No regrets, bro, we do it for the don't flex, bro, we do it for the no rest, bro, we do it for the no need to guess, bro, we do it for the no regrets, bro. We do it for the. Don't flex, bro. We do it for the. No rest, bro. We do it for the. No need to guess, bro. We do it for the.
I'm not the pig. You got to make a distinction. The people are going to have to stand up against the pig. That's what the pastors are doing. That's what the pastors are doing all over the world.
What's happening, good people? We are live and direct. What's going on? We are in the building. I got a special guest host today. I guess you see her already, so get familiar. Melina Abdullah, how you doing this morning?
Hey, I'm here. It's early.
It's early.
Grateful to be awake, though. Grateful to be alive.
No doubt, no doubt. It's a great day to be alive. It's a great day to be alive. Today, I brought you on, and we have a few other guests that will be joining us. I don't know what's up with my camera. My camera look like I'm fading out and whatnot, but I think I'll be all right. Today is a very special day in our community. For folks who are unaware, you should be aware, it's October 22nd. And on October 22nd, it is the day that it's the October 22nd Coalition to Stop Police Brutality, Repression, and Criminalization of a Generation. This day, about since 1996, we're talking about 26 years ago, 28 years ago.
28, yeah.
28 years ago, a coalition got together to commemorate stolen lives, to commemorate brothers and sisters who have been murdered by the police, assassinated, etc. And for those past 26 years, many of us have commemorated and joined in with protests, teachings, etc. And today is no different. So we wanted to keep with the tradition and, remember those whose lives have been stolen. So I invited our good sister, Melina Abdullah, on to join us. And, we have a few other guests that'll be talking about the importance and significance of this day. And we're also commemorating Stop Cop Nation. So if you don't mind, Melina, first of all, tell the people who you are for those who are unfamiliar. And let me see if I can do
Well,
some of this camera.
I'm your comrade, so
Okay.
I'm grateful to be here. My name is Melina Abdullah, and I am an organizer with Black Lives Matter Grassroots. Black Lives Matter Grassroots is 39 chapters of Black Lives Matter that does work all around the country. We are what you think of when you think of Black Lives Matter as a movement, right? That we were born out of the struggle that came in the acquittal of George Zimmerman for the murder of Trayvon Martin. And we're just regular people who were in the streets and said, we're not going to allow police and white supremacy to keep killing us, that we have to build a movement, not a moment. And so I organize with Black Lives Matter Grassroots. I also am a professor of Pan-African Studies at Cal State LA's College of Ethnic Studies. I'm a mama of 3 children, Tandiwe, Amara, and Amin. And I am also a vice presidential candidate running alongside Dr. Cornel West as an independent candidate meant to lift up our platform of truth, justice, and love. And we really see this campaign moment as a moment where we're also lifting up messages from the movement. This is meant to be a benefit to the movement. So I'm a lifelong organizer, born in Oakland, California. Now I live in Los Angeles, which is what I meant when I said it's early. It's 5 a.m. here, but grateful to be alongside my brother Kalanji Changa and doing this work to remind people what we have to do today to stop cop cities, stop cop nation, and usher in a world that's fit for our children and our future generations.
No doubt, no doubt. Definitely appreciate the work that you've been doing, the work that you will be doing. And, of course, we appreciate today because today, again, it's on so many different levels. We talk about police repression. We talk about police terrorism. We talk about something that's age old. It ain't a new thing. I mentioned the whole October 22nd coalition, primarily because, for one, when I say 26 years, excuse me, when I say 28 years, some folks look at it like, wow, that's been a long time. No, police terrorism has existed before policing as we know it, before the first police departments were put together in Boston and New York and Philadelphia. You had patty rollers, slave traders, so on and so forth. What I'd like to do is we have our brother who'll be joining us if he turn his camera on. We have a good brother in the background. Thank you, sir. Our dear brother who has been fighting on behalf of us probably before you and I even stepped on the scene, Melina. Matter of fact, I know it's before you and I stepped on the scene. Probably before we were born. I'm gonna just give him that kind of credit. Have our dad and OG Dharuba Ben Wahad in the building. What's happening, brother?
Peace, Melina. Peace, Kalanji. How are you?
Man.
Good morning. Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh. How are you? How are you doing, Melina?
Grateful to be here. Grateful to be here with you, especially, brother.
No doubt.
Well, I'm blessed. I'm blessed to see both of y'all. I'm in New York right now, and this is the land of Wubladi. This place is absurd. This is like traveling. This is like traveling into a science fiction, a docudrama. Yeah, it's crazy. But I'm here, and I'm glad that Kalanji reached out to me to be on the program this morning, and I think a lot of us are very concerned right now around things that are happening domestically and internationally, especially in relationship to U.S. domestic and foreign policy, 13 or so days before the national election here in the United States. So again, I'm glad Kalanji invited me on, and I'm honored to be here with you, sister. And so let's get it on.
No doubt. Yeah. So, as Melina and I was talking before you came on, D, of course, it's the 28th annual commemoration of the October 22nd Stop Police Brutality, Repression, et cetera, et cetera. And we know that you coming up out of the Panther Party in particular, you all had different ways of operating in fighting this type of day-old repression. But before I get on that, I want to because one of the things I talked about, or I just briefly mentioned, was the whole history of policing itself. Do you mind touching on that for a second, man, just to kind of give folks some clarity? Because I think a lot of folks think that this whole policing in the U.S. situation just came about willy-nilly, and that a few people end up, there's a few bad apples in the police department, and a few people have been killed, even though we know that the police murder at least between 1,000 and 1,500 a year. Some folks looking at it like, it's just, every now and then it's a bad cop situation. So if you don't mind taking us back a little bit historically to what policing in the U.S. is and how it came about. And I'm gonna work on this camera because I'm looking like a ghost right now.
Oh, you don't look worse than I do, bro.
You look charming.
Listen, and that's I think both you and Melina would agree that that's a pretty tall order to encapsulate how the armed agents of the state, which the police are, have arrived at this militarized neo-fascist moment that we are proto-fascist moment that we are now living in and confronting. It's really hard to encapsulate that in a brief period of time. But let me just say, in the modern era, and when I mean the modern era is after World War One, from 1918 until the present, uh, the police have increasingly been leveraged and used to contain, control, and intimidate working people's struggles for for a better life, uh, for freedom from poverty, and exploitation by um, by the ruling elite in the United States. Now, what I mean by that is, um, we all know that ever since the end of in the modern era, that the majority of Africans in the diaspora, Africans in the United States, have have undergone certain historic changes. We've migrated. There was the Great Migration from the South into the urban areas at the turn of the century. Some of this was if we look back to the Garvey movement of the early 1920s, when Black urbanization had seemed to coalesce into concentrations of Black people in urban areas in the North and the Northeast. We see that accompanying these transitions and movements of large populations of Black people out of the South, away from the vestiges of um, not Jim Crow, what we call sharecropping and its feudal systems, that Black people populated urban areas basically as lower class workers, and into communities that we now call the hood. And these communities were redlined. These communities were controlled by absentee landlords. These communities were exploited. The labor of poor people was exploited. And the major force in enforcing the control and the management of these communities was the police. And what we have never questioned, and which we need to question now with the rise of cop cities, is that we never questioned the rights of the police to brutalize us, to control us, to terrorize our communities. They had a mandate under law to enforce the law. And of course, the law is the law of the land, is partly a white supremacist construct. So the police have always been the armed agents of the state that enforce the white supremacist construct of anti-worker, anti-Black, anti-migrant policies in the United States. But the police are not workers. The police are armed agents of the state. And after World War I and throughout the Great Depression, and that began in 1929 and all the way up to World War II, that began for Europe in 1939, but began for the United States in 1941. And it was during this conflict, this great global conflict that killed millions and millions of people, that the police began to assume the character of a militarized force in America. The rise of, as I pointed out in a recent commentary that I sent to you, the rise, the civil rights movement that ushered in the 1954 Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, I mean, the subsequent rise of Black militancy, the urban rebellions in the ghettos in the late 50s, 60s, and 70s, created a apparatus of law enforcement and domestic control that increasingly relied on on the militarization and armed and the agencies of repression. We know about the move of bombing, and the almost the leveling of the black community in Philadelphia under a black mayor. We know about the repression of the counterintelligence program used to destroy black militancy and organizations like the Black Panther Party and SNCC and RAM and RNA. But all of these features of our development, all the way from the beginning of the 20th century, relied upon the armed agents of white power, the armed agents of corporate power. We don't really read into this an understanding that when the police coined the slogan "serve and protect," that they are serving the oligarchy, they are serving the rich, and they're here to protect their property and their interests. They're not here to serve the communities of poor working people. They are here to control these communities. Whenever people go on strike or rebel or try to exercise freedom of speech, it is the police that are brought out to beat us into submission. It is the police who are used by the educational institutions, the corporate institutions, the state to curtail our rights as workers and as Black people. So the police are not just in the community to protect us. The police do not have a mandate to really protect individuals and protect people from criminal activity. The police have a mandate to enforce the law, and the law in America is a white supremacist construct. It's institutionally a white supremacist construct. And as I pointed out in the brief aside to you earlier, we've had to constantly resist the armed violence and terrorism of the police in our community. From the 60s, when we rebelled against police brutality and police murder in our community, the pushback was mass incarceration. The pushback was to somehow curtail the advancements that were made during the civil rights era that gave Black people the right to vote, and that could increasingly become a means of Black people leveraging their right to vote into independent political power. And so we had the war on drugs, we had the war on crime, we had the war on poverty, we had all of these so-called wars against communities that were held, that were viewed as rebellious, as threatening to white supremacy and white skin privilege in America. The fears of white folks in America, the fear of the minorities, the fear of migrants and immigrants has always been used by the ruling elite to militarize, mobilize, and employ the violence of the state on Black people, to use it to threaten Black people, to threaten us with imprisonment and things like that. So
check this out. Real quick, not to cut your bill, because what you're saying is definitely on point, and especially with what's going on today, making a connection. We have a few other guests I'm going to bring on board real quick. We have, first of all, appreciation to Melina for joining today as a co-host. She's not a guest, so you can feel free to jump in when you want to. Treat it like it's your show. You know what I'm saying? But we have, I want to bring on one of our other longtime comrades. She was a comrade before she was to you, before she was to me. And she comes up out of that whole era that you spoke of a few minutes ago in regards to the 60s. Of course, you being in the Black Panther Party and the BLA. She was a part of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. I want to bring on Mama Afia Wanganza. How you doing, Mama Afia? How's everything going?
Good morning. Good morning. Hanging in there. Getting ready for the day.
No doubt. No doubt.
The 29th National Day of Protest of police brutality, repression, and the criminalization of a generation.
Right on, right on. Now, I'm glad to have you on because first of all, I know you getting busy, and for folks that don't know Mama Fear, she is an attorney. She is I would even say a journalist because of the whole radio program. She was doing it before I was, and she is a hardcore organizer. I had the opportunity to organize with her for a short while in Greenville, South Carolina, and I remember one of the things she said when I first met her. I was like, she said, where you organize that? I said, in Atlanta. She said, shit, anybody can organize in Atlanta. Try Greenville, South Carolina. And, and I ain't going front. She's a one woman gang out there, and she don't give a damn. And we was out there, and just to see the Negroes, and I love Greenville. I got family in Greenville, so don't get mad. But I'm just saying the Negroes out there, they're a special type of Negroes. These Negroes in Atlanta, they different. But the Negroes in Greenville, South Carolina, shit, the plantation definitely exists. Anyway, am I wrong with what I'm saying, Mama Fear?
That's the facts. That's the facts. In fact, they'll fight you to stay on it.
Man, listen, I seen them. I was out there back in my wild days, maybe 20 years ago. I'm talking about fuck the police. They looking at me like, that's the police right there. I mean, like, do you see him? Like, he done lost his mind. But anyway, I want you, if you don't mind, because we was just talking to D about the history of policing going back. I want to, if you don't mind, because one of the things that folks don't hear too much about, and again, Melina, you can jump in whenever you want to. Don't let me take over. You know, I'll be running my mouth. I want to talk about the work, some of the work that SNCC did around fighting police repression and the work that was primarily in the South that many organizers were afraid to touch. You know, we don't hear too much about SNCC. So if you don't mind touching on that a little bit in regards to how it ties in to what's going on right now.
Well, one of the things about SNCC was, first of all, SNCC went places where other folks wouldn't dare to go, like Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Southwest Georgia. And when in the early days with the nonviolence, which, as Charlie Cobb put it, could get you killed, there was great tolerance of abuse. In fact, SNCC would, and all of the organizations, SNCC, CORE, SCLC, NAACP, would file these complaints with the FBI, only to have them deep-sixed and disregarded. In fact, the FBI were involved with the local police, which was involved with the local Klan. It wasn't until the formation of organizations like the Deacons for Defense that we began to deal with the question of state violence, modern day, as you put it, state violence in defense of ourselves and of our projects. The truth of the matter is that there was always armed resistance in the movement, and there is always armed resistance in every movement. We hear talk about the Gandhi movement and how independence movement of India was so nonviolent. That's bullshit. Among the most fierce resistors was a squadron of women in India who were known to take heads. So there's a great deal of mythology. The H. Brown Law, as it's called, is an indication of where SNCC was in terms of state violence. The fact that Jamil always carried a rifle, always was armed, and that out of that habit, he and the state of the gun control laws at that time, when he went north to Maryland, he carried his rifle with him and carried it on the plane. They wanted to say that, he was stirring up trouble, that he caused the rebellion in Baltimore with Gloria Chambers. And they ultimately passed the law saying that you couldn't carry, except under very strict circumstances, arms from one state to the other, similar to the arms control law gun control law that they came up with, Reagan came up with against the Panthers. However, it's important to recognize the fact that, and of course, I would recommend the book, Akinyele Umoja, We Shoot Back, that documents the self-defense thread within the movement. But I would challenge us to recognize the history of our resistance, which is also downplayed. The fact that there was the Denmark VC so-called conspiracy in Charleston, South Carolina, 50 years before the Haitian Rebellion, the Nat Turner Rebellion, which was one of the most successful ones that actually came off in Virginia. We're in an environment that an ongoing criminal enterprise that was built with stolen labor on stolen land, and there is no way to maintain control of such an environment other than by force, whether it's literal force as represented by the most up-to-date weapons. And as an aside, the South Carolina Citadel grew out of the Denmark VC rebellion. The Citadel which still, one part of it still exists. We think of it as just as a military university, which of course spreads assassins all over the world. But that came out of was a response to the Denmark VC rebellion. So when we start telling the history, we must tell also our resistance and get past the brick and mortar. The brick and mortar is just a memorial to the mindset of oppression, repression, and as my comrade God, I'm going to turn you into Jaribu despite it all, right? Daruba, put it, containment. You gotta contain these folk whose land you're stealing and whose labor you're taking. I want to recognize my sister Melina, longtime struggler, for whom I have much respect and take much inspiration. So South Carolina has a long history of resistance, and the other end of the spectrum of violence is the psychological violence, which I always say is stronger in South Carolina than and crueler than Mississippi. People talk about Mississippi because it's so bloody and gory, but the reference that you make towards the captives here in South Carolina being willing to fight to stay on the plantation is a function of the scientific method of brainwashing and mind control that reached an early level of sophistication, because Africans outnumbered the Europeans, and because they could not work people and beat people and lock them up in the stocks and make money, they had to come up with methods for control. So they developed this whole system of management of, and I know that the Willie Lynch letter is reported to be a myth, but the methodology was mastered here in South Carolina, where folks from enslavers from the Caribbean wound up coming to the Carolinas because there was more land. And I'll quit there.
All good, all good. I definitely appreciate that. Melina, would you like to add on? We also have we have a few more guests as well. One, because we recognizing that this day is in commemoration, and I like the way you put it, Mama Fia, about the whole brick and mortar, because I think that folks do get caught up in the nostalgia. They like the thought of the Black Panther Party, they like the thought of SNCC, they like the thought of RAM, but they don't like the action and work, the political education, and none of that shit. You know what I mean? They like taking the pictures. Look who I took a photo with. You know what I mean? They like the gear. You know what I'm saying? They like the pose and all that shit. But when the state dropped that hammer on them, then it's a whole different program.
Yeah.
We do have a family member of a mother who lost her son, because we do want to remember that this is in commemoration of stolen lives as well. But Melina, if you'd like to add on, we have Ashley Smith that'll be joining us as well. But go ahead.
Oh, Sister Ashley's joining. That's great. I'm just sitting here taking note of all these gems, especially what Mama Afia shared, that the state is constructed in such a way, as Brother Deruba offered, that, it's there to control us. It's not there to serve us. It's there to control us. I love what Mama Afia was saying, that we've never submitted to that, however. We've never submitted to that we always understood that there has to be struggle against these agents of the state. That's what police are, armed agents of the state. And Brother Deruba gave such a great history of that when you think about 1850 and the Fugitive Slave Act and the ways in which armed agents of the state were enlisted to control, to return enslaved people as stolen property of the white ownership class, right? That's what policing is. And as people who are not property, as people who are human beings with a divine obligation to pursue our own freedom and the freedom of our people, we've never submitted. We've never simply submitted to our oppression. And as you're pointing out, Brother Kalanji, there's also repercussions for our resistance. And, nobody better than Brother Deruba can talk about what that looks like, how they round us up and harm us and kill us and imprison us and steal our freedom. Mama Afia invoked Jamil Alameen, and we know that, many years after kind of the height of SNCC, he was still a target of the state and is still being held by the state. And even those whose names we might not know, but whose names we begin to see as hashtags. And I see my sister Ashley Mackenzie Smith joining us, right? When we think about her son, Black people, whether we are actually resisting or they just understand that we're not going to submit to their oppression, we have targets on our backs. And so that's why today, 022, National Day to Stop Police Brutality, is so important. And it's why it's important that we fight back with everything that we have to resist their plan for us. And Brother Kalanji, I love to quote your book and your work that gives the history of the Cop City that we're fighting in Atlanta, and how all of these things are tied together, from the war on the genocide on Palestinian people, to the genocide of indigenous people, to the attempt to dehumanize and steal the lives and labor of Black people, to what's happening right now with the continued war on Black people. I know that it's no longer as popular to say Black Lives Matter, but when we talk about at least 1,500 people being killed every year by police violence, there's still a war on Black people, and we have to continue to resist that. And so, Mama Afia, as you're talking, you might see me looking down, but what I'm doing is typing down these gems you're dropping. I'm inspired, like you, by our brother AK, and we will shoot back. I actually now Kalanji knows, don't pass me the mic and expect me to be as short as I intend.
Listen, I got gunners on here today. It's all good. Go ahead.
A quick gem. I love that book, and I learned a lesson that don't break that book out on the plane and try to read it, right? Reading a book called We Will Shoot Back on the Plane will get you some side eyes, if not much more. But it's something that we have to engage in. We have to engage in the history of struggle, which is what I'm hearing you say, that we've always resisted, and that resistance hasn't looked like that sanitized version that they try to force feed us. Oh, it was Martin Luther King who just had a dream, and that's how we got free, right? That it's been resistance in all its forms. We've always used every tool in our toolbox. And I think what I'm taking from both of you, and why I feel so blessed and honored to be in all of your presence, is that it reminds us that with every ounce of our being, at every moment in our life, we owe our people and we owe our God the resistance it takes to be free.
No doubt. We're gonna I'm gonna go to a quick break. We're gonna do a musical piece, and we're gonna return with Ashley Mackenzie Smith, whose son Jaylen Mackenzie. We will hail his name up. Ashley's right here in Atlanta. Had the opportunity to have her on the platform previously, and I believe we was at her son's 1-year memorial in Atlanta. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk with her shortly. We have Dhoruba Ben Wahad, veteran Panther, BLA, freedom fighter. We have Mama Afia Wanganza, SNCC vet, and organizer, freedom fighter, etc., along with my co-host for the day, Melina Abdullah, who is a VP candidate under the homie Cornel West. Shout out to Cornel West, Mr. West. Him and Dhoruba was arguing about who had the biggest afro back in the day. I'm joking. But anyway, I think he got Dhoruba beat this time. But anyway, we're going to be right back with you in a second. This is Forward Motion by Diaspora Black and Wise Intelligent. Black Power Media.
Mass hysteria and looting are widespread across the world. Riots were reported in London. The United Nations is calling for emergency.
Forward motion. That me a deal with yap, forward motion. We on the whole clip, yap, forward motion. That me a deal with yap, forward motion. When we start, now we have a quick yo. Forward motion. That me a deal with yap, forward motion. We on the whole clip, yap, forward motion. That me a deal with yap, forward motion. When we start, now we have a quick. My brothers and sisters, don't move savage. Remember say yes we are higher than average. System pillage, plunder, ravage. Still our land, so they can live lavish. Poison the food, continue the damage. Mix the curriculum, school and college. Forward motion, elevate knowledge. Alpha man, figure let go to college. We're killing shock away in your forehead. One is with your brother means you no more dirt. One is with your sister means you no more dirt. One is with the earth means you more dirt. One is with spirit means you true third. From the beginning we have been original man. Foundation, our original stand. Fulfilling our destiny, original plan of original man. Indio, Kimetan, Kushai, Nupian, Panjigan, Akipilan, Dartigans of the land. Dealing with communication has been our ancestral plan. Forward motion. That me a deal with yap, forward motion. We on the whole clip, yap, forward motion. That me a deal with yap, forward motion. When we start, now we have a quick yo. Forward motion. That me a deal with yap, forward motion. We on the whole clip, yap, forward motion. That me a deal with yap, forward motion. When we start, now we have a quick.
Forward motion, never back on nigga. Get out, drop, stop selling crack, stop pulling triggers. I'm black, you black, he black. Black lives matter, go figure. Equality is equal to white man privilege. Give me that. Give me white man privilege. Pop. White cops purging the village. In the urban landscape, the black village. America, white supremacist. You condition cool, just don't get it. RPG is coming soon, them niggas are the realest. Genocide, genocide. Yeah, they wanna kill us. Seven continents wide. Yeah, they wanna kill us. This is global white supremacy. That is the global enemy. Fire burn white Jesus Christ. Fire burn white Christianity.
Forward motion. That me do it, yap, forward motion. We on the whole clip, yap, forward motion. That me do it, yap, forward motion. When we start, we now go quick, yo. Forward motion. That me do it, yap, forward motion. We on the whole clip, yap, forward motion. That me do it, yap, forward motion. When we start, we now go quick.
Young and I'm black and my God call me Atlas. I got the whole world on my shoulders. I am the maker, the owner, the indigenous soul controller. All these devils act like they control us. Send they police to patrol us. I know they set traps, but I'm focused. I trigger the traps if we poke it. Knew this you rugu would do what you rugu do. Fuck it, come dance with me, devil. I knew that your race and your whole population was below replacement level. Fear of genetic annihilation at the end of your dominion. I study your nature, ISIS papers, Dr. Francis Cross Wilson. I'm dominant, you a recessor, so actually time's on my side. Despite your aggression and all the oppression, I'm ever forward. Ain't no way to stop a conscious ghetto god decolonized from a goddamn menticide. Free brides for the tribe, all wise, civilized, black liberation, nigga, I'll be for Hody. Only black revolutionary homies, straight ahead, Russell Maroon shows told me. Gunshots, that mean forward, lick one, that means rewind. Forward, might select the reload your carbine.
Forward motion. That me do it, yap, forward motion. We on the whole clip, yap, forward motion. That me do it, yap, forward motion. When we start, we now go quick, yo. Forward motion. That me do it, yap, forward motion. We on the whole clip, yap, forward motion. That me do it, yap, forward motion. When we start, we now go quick.
Piece that was Forward Motion. That's a piece that was directed by my brother Balogun and myself. That's our crew FTP movement. We use creative resistance to make sure that we get the point across. So that's a joint we did a few years ago. We're back. We have Melina Abdullah co-hosting, Mama Fia, Dhuba Ben Wahad, and we have Ashley Mackenzie Smith. Melina, you want to do the honors of introducing good sister Ashley?
Sure. So we were just talking yesterday. Sister Ashley is just a tremendous light in this world. Her son, Jaylen Mackenzie, was stolen by police violence. We know he wasn't lost. He was intentionally targeted and stolen by police violence in Tennessee. And a lot of the kind of outrage around Jaylen's murder was kind of overshadowed in the wake of the murder of Tyree Nichols. And it's Ashley Mackenzie Smith, his beloved mother, who made sure that we lifted up what happened to Jaylen, who's helped to try to get to the bottom of what happened to Jaylen, who was home on a holiday break when he was stolen by police violence. Since then, as we talked about, Mama Fia talked about fighting with everything that we have, rather than just, and I'm a mama, so I can't imagine what Sister Ashley is feeling. And it's such a gift, Sister Ashley, what you've done with a pain that's unimaginable, in turning your pain into purpose and really standing up, because Jaylen's been stolen. But my son is 14. And your struggle in Jaylen's name is intended to and does make the world safer for our children. And so Ashley Mackenzie Smith recently became in our latest class of co-founders of Black Lives Matter Memphis. And so she organizes with the Black Lives Matter Grassroots team and is doing work today on the National Day to Stop Police Brutality. She lives in Atlanta, but organizes in both Memphis and Atlanta. And grateful to just share space with you, Sister Ashley, and for all of your incredible work that you've been doing. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that's kind of hard to come behind and say something after that. My goodness. You woke me up this morning. I wasn't ready to get up.
Yes. We definitely appreciate you coming on, and thank you, Melina, for laying it out. If you don't mind, actually give us some background on Jaylen's story, because I think that there's some viewers who unfortunately haven't, gotten on board. So if you can share with us, who your son is. We're not going to say was, because we know that you hold him close and dear,
Exactly.
and that he's still here spiritually. So if you don't mind, give us some background on who he is, and also what happened on that. I believe it was a December night, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, it was in December. Yep, December 2022. So again, I'm Ashley McKenzie Smith, and I am Jaylen McKenzie's mother. Jaylen was a very, quiet. He was very reserved, very woke child. He taught me a couple of things that I'm learning to use today, like meditation and chakras, and very spiritual young man. Very mannerable. I remember when we was doing his website, all the different stories that we received and the comments about how he would wait till the last lady got off the bus, and how he opened and closed doors, and things like that. So that's pretty much who he was. He also was in college. He worked a full-time job. He had no children, and he was 20 years old. So what happened to Jaylen was he was visiting his family, his dad's side in Memphis. Had some holiday time that he had to use, stayed a little bit longer, and they got a call to go to the gas station. I'm just gonna be honest, because I like to be very transparent with Jaylen's story, because there's so many moving pieces and parts to Jaylen's story. So the brother got a call. They all was supposed to go smoke weed, and they went to the gas station to buy a wrapper. Once they left out of the gas station, they went to a parking lot of a plaza. Sat on the far end away from the building, was not near anything. And before they actually was able to stop, the police came in, put the white light on them. The driver of the car drove out of the parking lot. He didn't speed or anything like that, just drove out normally, even let another car go past him before he even turned out into the street. When the young man realized that the police was chasing him, he ran a red light. During the traffic stop, they never called the traffic stop in, so they didn't get permission to even bother the boys. They were listening to rapper killer music. They were texting on their phone, and they were actually supposed to be on a whole nother call. They weren't even supposed to be in that area. So then once the driver of the car, he crashed into a nearby park. The police jumped out of the car, cursing, and already had their guns drawn out. In the video, we can't even see the other 4 boys. All you see is my son. And so you see my son run. You hear them saying, "I'm gonna shoot you." You can even see when they shoot him from the back. It took me a minute, to keep playing it back and back and forth to see if I could see where the first shot actually was. So Jaylen was shot 5 times. He was shot from the front, the back, and the side. The chest shot was the killer shot. That was the one that actually he bled to death from. So in the video, you also see Jaylen running away. You don't see him turn around to them. And that's when they did the first shot from the back as they were running behind him. You even hear, like I said, you hear them tell him, I'm gonna shoot you, and then you hear a pow. So you got to kind of listen to it. He gets across the street. One of the officers falls and say, "Get him, get him, get him." And then you hear nothing but 7 to 8 shots from one gun. And they want to say that my son shot at them and they were returning fire. But we're still trying to figure out where those gunshots from that they're saying that Jaylen actually shot. When the first officer walks on the scene, my son is laying on the ground with his hands behind his head. And you see no visible gun. And this is the first officer that walk up on Jaylen. There's no visible gun. Then a Caucasian officer comes. And then all of a sudden, there's a gun. And so some of the things that we question is, if you're saying that my son had a gun and he shot at you and you was threatening or you fear for your life, then why would you allow a gun to stay next to him? It never moved it. So it took for other officers to come on scene before you're saying that the gun that was there was moved. Why not? Why it was 2 other officers on the scene before then? Why nobody moved it if you fear for your life? So that was, so that's a big question for me. They didn't have on their sirens. The cop that actually shot Jaylen, he was a rookie cop, just got on the force not too long ago. He cut off his body camera after roll call. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of moving pieces in Jaylen's story, even from the their manager, supervisor, whoever. He comes on the scene and put both officers in the same patrol car. And they actually watched a movie for 2 hours while they're investigating what happened, and my son is still on the ground. They're watching a movie in a patrol car together. So it's just a whole bunch of different things in Jaylen's story that just doesn't make any sense. Like not rendering aid. And then when they did render aid, you can see Jaylen's hands fall. And I'm like, that's my baby's last breath. Like, I literally saw his last breath on video, and it's very disgusting.
Man, sorry. One of the things you said, you talked about texting and playing the killer rap music. You was talking about the cops.
Mm-hmm, the cops. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about that, because I guess you must have saw it on camera.
So as we've been protesting, and first of all, I've had the hardest time to get anything from Memphis. One being that I'm not a citizen from, I don't live there. So it's like we had to get an attorney. And then they weren't too great. So we finally did get a set that's pretty decent that I like. But I had to do a lot of groundwork myself, like going back and forth to Memphis, doing multiple rallies, pretty much talking to whoever I could talk to, because the first time we went to Memphis, they wanted to say there was no police report. There is no incident report. There's nothing. So I'm like, I don't understand how you don't have no paperwork on this at all. This is a whole death. Like, you got to have something. And so that's when I knew then, I'm like, oh, we got some serious work to do, because there's something going on they're trying to hide. And
what do you mean no paperwork?
No paperwork. There's no incident report. There's no police report.
When did you go down? When did you go down I'm sorry, go ahead.
February the 3rd, which was February the 3rd of 2023. That's when we went down there for the first time. Jaylen was killed December 16th, 2022. We had his funeral January the 6th, 2023. And we wasn't getting any help. We was calling TBI. We was doing all type of stuff. When nobody returning telephone calls, when nobody telling nothing. So me and my brother said, look, we got to go to Memphis. And so one day we just got up and went, and I'm like, we're going to go to the morgue. We're going everywhere that Jaylen or anybody may have something on Jaylen. We're going to go there and visit. So we made a whole trip just to try to get some information because they weren't telling us anything. The only thing we knew when I got the call for Jaylen was that he was in a police involved shooting and he was deceased. That's all they told me. Yeah, we didn't know anything. And so then we had to start looking on the news for, Tennessee, Memphis, and try to figure out what's going on. And I'm like, hold on, wait. The story they putting out, 4 black boys, all dressed in black, all armed, and it's only one person that's deceased. You don't have nobody else. And it's dark. So how you know all 4 boys gone if all 4 boys were armed? If you don't have anybody detained and the only person you have is deceased. So that's what made me start digging because I'm like, that ain't making no sense. It's dark outside and you don't got nobody. So I don't believe it. So, we blowing up TBI. We blowing up Memphis Police Department. We blowing up everybody that we can blow up. Ain't nobody returning telephone calls. They even came to my son's repass. Like, the police was at my son's repass.
So Sister Ashley also, when we talk about doing her own investigation, I'm talking about going door to door, asking people what they saw. I'm talking about really, really getting deep into this investigation because the police are covering for each other. And so it's really important that we understand how deep this goes and continues to go. They're not giving any information, let alone semblance of justice. So I don't mean to co-sign your story, Sister Ashley, but I want people to know it wasn't just a matter of you Googling something or, watching news reports.
Right. We had to do the footwork. We had to get out there. We spent a lot of money going just back and forth to Memphis, like literally walking the neighborhood. I knocked on doors. Some people would talk to me, some people wouldn't. We would leave flyers anywhere we can leave flyers. Like we was leaving flyers at gas stations. Anything we can get. We was even watching YouTubes from different things to see if we can figure out if somebody saw somebody, because it was a park. So if somebody was just sitting in the park and may have seen something, we're inquiring about cameras. We're looking at cameras from the street for the city, from the neighbors. Like we literally were our own investigation. And when I got there, I knew something was wrong. I just felt it. You just have that whole mama thing going on. And the place they wanted to say that my son was killed was actually not the location that he actually died. So there's so many moving pieces in Jaylen's story. That's crazy. It's a Memphis cover-up. Like they don't even know where my son's property is right now. Like that's what I'm fussing and fighting for now. Is like, I want all his stuff. I don't care if it has a blood on it. I don't care if it has a bullet hole in it. I don't care what it is. I want all my son's stuff. And nobody knows where it is. It's been signed out and it has no signature on it. That's what they're saying. So we've even had I think it was February. Yeah, I think it was February 6th. Or January, I don't know. I can't remember. Somewhere up in there, February 6th. But somebody even posted on my son's social media page on his story. And it has to be somebody that has his phone. The only person that had his phone at that time was TBI or MPD. And they did a Memphis football camp. My son wasn't even into sports. He liked music.
TBI is Tennessee Bureau of
Investigations. Yes.
Man, listen, I'm sitting here and I'm still tripping off of the fact that you're telling us that your son was murdered in December, and in February they still didn't even have paperwork. They didn't even have anything saying that even happened. But these, part of my English, these motherfuckers show up at the repass. You understand what I'm saying? They got a lot of heart. This is why we need a BLA. You know what I'm saying? This is why we need a RAM. We need,
He has texted me. He has called me. He has emailed me.
Who's this now? I'm sorry.
The officer that shot my son, the one that actually did the chest shot. He's called, text, email. He's created fake Facebook pages trying to befriend me, all type of crazy stuff.
And he's
They
still on
tried
the
to go
force?
lock up the aunt for a welfare check. They was harassing the dad down there, parked across the street, watching the house. Anytime I go to Memphis, I literally have to not tell anybody I'm coming because we get harassed when we go down there.
And what's the officer's name? Because we want.
It's Officer Nahum Dorm, but he's an MMA fighter, so he goes by Rashid Dorm as well.
An MMA fighter, huh?
Yeah, he's an MMA fighter. Yep.
This shit is I'm sorry.
What is an MMA fighter?
Mixed martial arts fighter.
Oh, so he should not ever appear anywhere where there isn't somebody asking him questions, holding up a sign or saying something. He should have no peace. No peace whatsoever.
We did go down there to see the fight before we had when we was in switching up our attorneys. And so we did go down there. Me, my brother went down there, sister-in-law went down there and saw him fight. Took some pictures of him fight, just to show how aggressive he is. And so we did put some flyers out there. We gave them even to the officers that was out there waiting for us. Like literally on the level that we sat on, they had it swamped with police officers just waiting for us to make a move. Like
so they knew you were there. They knew you was coming.
They knew we were there. So earlier that day we had a rally. So they knew we were in the city, but nobody knew we were going to the actual fight because we knew that would probably be an issue. So we didn't tell anybody. Only a selected few knew that we were actually going to, like, what we were going to do next. And so a team of us who left from the rally, we all went to the fight. And it was just me and my family that actually went into the fight to see him fight.
Yeah. We definitely appreciate you coming on and chatting with us. This is crazy. We're going to talk about ways. We know that you have something going on in Atlanta today as well, correct?
Yeah, so what we've been doing, we've had a 3-day long celebration, awareness, whatever you want to call it, in honor of OC22. So one of the things we're trying to do as a group of mothers, and it's from a lot of different states, is we want to do community involvement. That is going into the community and spreading love and awareness so that they can be a little bit more knowledgeable about what's really going on and the numbers of it. They know police brutality is going on, but because the numbers are never really just really put out there in your face, then they don't see how big of an issue it is. So we know it's a problem, but we don't know how bad it is. Like we don't see it. Most people are visual people. So we did that. We did senior care boxes on Sunday, and that was in honor of Katherine Johnson, who was a 92-year-old that was killed in the Vine City community by a botched drug raid.
We worked on that case.
Yay! So that was really exciting to give back to the community. We even gave some stuff to the homeless as well. And then on yesterday, it was more of engaging as far as awareness. So that will put us to like doing more political things, going to the Capitol, talking to our legislators and things like that. So that's more of what yesterday was about, because it's great to get out here and rally. It's great to do protests, but we got to get in those rooms where we're not welcome. We got to change some of these laws. Those are really the most important things as well. It's a lot of different pieces that we got to do. And we got to strategically put our people in certain places so that things can benefit us. So that's one of the things that we're working on as well. Then today is a day of remembrance. So we'll have the Say Their Name monument out, and then we'll do a candlelight visual at 7 at Centennial Park.
Okay. So I want to, real quick, I want to say that you mentioned Katherine Johnson. For the viewers who are not familiar, Katherine Johnson was a 92-year-old who was murdered here in Atlanta back in 2006. The police went into the wrong house. They ripped the burglar burglar gates off. They were unannounced. They had on Tim's hoodies, the whole thing. They were the Red Dog Squad, the same squad that was under the police chief in Memphis with the whole Tyrese situation. That's how she ended up getting to Memphis. Matter of fact, she went to North Carolina, then she ended up in Memphis, and where she fired those particular officers. But what she did, side note here, one of the cops that was involved in the that was here in Atlanta, not a cop, one of her officers, the husband of one of her officers, actually was involved in some type of nefarious sex, pornography, child thing or whatever, and she kind of swept that under the rug. But the Captain Johnson case, they claimed that she fired on these officers, but the fact was she had a rusty 38 that she fired in the air. She never had a traffic ticket. She never had any of that type of stuff. In fact, one of the members of our organization, FTP movement, was her mailman for 13 years. So he actually knew her. So he called us before they even put it on the media, and they said they're going to try to lie on this woman, whatever. He said, I know this woman. I've been knowing her for 13 years. She didn't even leave the porch. So what happened was they claimed that they found drugs in her basement, but they got this 23-year-old, 24-year-old snitch. And it was a preacher, Markel Hutchinson, who got this boy to get up on the thing because they told him, they said, listen, the police was like, look, say you bought drugs from this house. So he did, but then he thought about it. He realized who the woman was. He said, man, this woman reminds me of my grandmother. So he got on the news and said that they told him to say it. You know, so long story short, it was a whole fiasco around that. Former U.S. Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney and myself, we worked on that case for years along with other folks. But, you know, there's a case that it was swept under the rug or forgotten about because 2 days later, Sean Bell was murdered on his wedding day. So folks didn't hear about what happened with Captain Johnson, but they heard about Sean Bell because it was his wedding day, so on and so forth. So that kind of eclipsed that situation. Why are you on here, Ashley? And we appreciate the things that you are doing. And we know that oftentimes, as Comrade Deruba, who is on this panel today, talks about, is a lot of times we have victim-led movements. And the unfortunate thing about that is you're thrust into a situation. Your son was murdered, you know what I'm saying? And you're thrust out into this fight. You know what I'm saying? And this might not have been the fight that you was looking at. You might have not been looking at that, but you were forced into this fight because someone came along and stole your son. And of course, we sympathize. It was hard for me to even talk about it as many times I heard it. But one of the things that we talk about is community control of public safety. And I want to bring Deruba on to talk about that because we need more solutions. It's okay. It's cool that folks are doing different things. We're commemorating, we're doing things for the community, so on and so forth. But what are the action items? So we want to talk about some of that while you're on the joint today. So Deruba, if you don't mind, let's talk about community control of public safety.
No, first of all, I want to say to the sister, you know, I'm so sorry that you had your boy taken from you, and it stirs up very, very, very deep emotions for me because this has been going on all my life, and I grew up in the South Bronx, where the police functioned back in the 50s and early 60s with almost absolute impunity to the brutalization and murder of our people. So, sister, I just want to say that, you know, it's heartrending for me to hear your story and the ordeal you have to go through. It's not only heartrending, it enrages me. And I try to hold this rage in check and not sound nihilistic or crazy, you know. But I just want to say that this is going to continue as the militarization of the police becomes more essential to the maintenance of empire and the control of the population. And young people are waking up. They're waking up as the genocide in Western Asia unfolds before our very eyes. They see the nation state of America for what it really is. and this isn't a new generation. And I just want to say that when we talk about something as fundamental as community control of public safety, we are talking about thrusting a dagger into the heart of proto-fascism. Because without a national police force, without a militarized police force, it's impossible for the oligarchy in America to enforce fascism, to enforce these fascistic behaviors. And we have to take the initiative. We have to take the initiatives. We have to urge our attorneys and our representatives in Congress and in the state legislations to revise the idea and the notion of the police as workers, to decertify police unions. That's an initiative. We may not win it in court, but it will educate people to the real role of law enforcement in America. And I think also we need to fully appreciate that that what police brutality is not an aberration. It's the function of the police state to intimidate and terrorize poor people, working people, and keep them in thrall to the electoral college system and the present status quo. You know, I think that what's relevant for us right now at this particular juncture is that that the people, the victims of white supremacist police violence, have to be mobilized, have to be heard, have to be put on the political agenda of our so-called Black elected officials. And the reason why they're not is because America's white supremacist construct rules through proxy. It rules through the co-optation of our human rights, of our humanity, and they portray this co-optation as progress. They portray this co-optation as we are, we are Americans, and therefore we deserve equal treatment under the law, and that's a delusion. And the leadership that I talked about historically, about leadership of Black struggle by victimhood. We have the Al Sharptons, we have these Negroes who make a living off of the murder of our children. They rush to the scene, they provide money for the funerals of the victims, and then they become the family spokespersons. And this is what I meant by leadership by victimhood. You know, it's sad that this sister and many mothers like her were thrust into the maelstrom of police violence unwillingly. Many of these these families are almost completely apolitical. They have their children weren't killed because they were activists on the front line of the struggle. They were randomly murdered by white racist dog policemen. And it's the Al Sharptons and those who try to translate that into reactionary and meaningless reforms, such as more training for the police. That has been used as a placebo for cop cities, for training urban guerrilla warfare, training police in urban guerrilla warfare. And who do they work with? They work with the police and law enforcement agencies of the EU and the IDF in order to get the most or utilize the most advanced techniques in community control. We have to look clearly at where we are at in this country. And unfortunately, over historically, we have had Black enemies of Black people co-opt all of our thrusts for political power. When we gathered in Gary, Indiana, back in the 70s to organize a Black political party, it was the Jesse Jacksons and the heirs of Al Sharpton and these reactionary Negroes that came forward to say it wasn't time for a Black political party, that we had to stay inside the parameters of the Democratic Party. And they sabotaged the whole movement. And so we have to clearly understand that in America, if we do not have political power or political influence as a people, as an alliance with other working people and migrants who are also demonized and marginalized, if we do not organize ourselves into a force, we will continually be victimized by this behavior and by police murder and intimidation. There has to be an equal distribution of the pain. Without an equal distribution of the pain, these crackers will never concede. They will never back down. So only when their children are coming home in body bags do they start to consider reconciliation on a serious level. This is what happened in Vietnam. This is what happened in Korea. This is what happened in Latin America. Whenever their children suffer the retribution of oppressed people, that's when they start talking about we have to come together and stop the pain and the cycle of violence. Okay. And I hate to say this, when we thrust sisters like Ashley into the forefront of our struggle, and then we have these misleaders like the Hakeem Greens and the Sharptons come forward and use their grief, use their pain to get behind legislation that doesn't legislate, that doesn't change anything. And then if we come along and say, well, they're not our leaders, that we have a movement that has leaders with political acumen and power. I remember when Sister Afia Gaza, Mama Afia, I helped get her to Geneva to counter the argument of the U.S. government to the brilliant piece of work that she did in trying to hold the U.S. government accountable for political prisoners, and right in the middle of this, and Afia could testify to this, they trotted out this Negro lawyer, what's his name, the one Sharpton uses for everything. I forgot his name.
Ben Crump.
Yeah, a Crump. And this is a brother that he hasn't won a case yet. All he has managed to acquire is the silencing of protests by getting grants and funds to the bereaved families. He hasn't won one case yet in court that sentenced these murderous cops to prison for their murder. And they brought him in, and Afia could testify to this. I believe a brother had just been murdered, and he was the attorney. And he came before the Human Rights Commission of the United States he flew in one day, and he flew out that evening. And he gave a 10-minute presentation about how the Human Rights Commission should recognize the murder of his then client as a human rights violation, and he flew out. He just flew in and flew out.
Well, so I got to stop you. That was Justin Hansford. From who was there on behalf of the Michael Brown's family.
Yes, absolutely,
yes. Justin Hansford is, that's a good thing his name, but he's got a hand in there because he is definitely one of their hand servants.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, thank you for that correction, Mama. But the dynamic of it, that he took the opportunity of the Michael Brown case being in the news to fly in during a very crucial litigation in the International Court of Human Rights that Afia had shepherded and followed without support. She didn't have much. The sister was about to mortgage her house to try to get the proper documentation and presentation before the Human Rights Commission, the United Nations Human Rights Committee. So I'm just saying, brothers and sisters like Mama Afia, like Kalanji, like Melina, who have been fighting in the trenches all these years to curtail police violence and brutality against our people, have always been sidelined and not given the type of platform that's necessary to mobilize our people and educate our people about the role of the police, precisely because of these comprador Negroes, precisely because the misleadership class has used the victimization of our people as a platform for their leadership and for their notoriety. So again, Sister Ashley, I'm sorry that. I have children. I have boys. And just thinking about the danger that they live every day in America, just being Black boys, that their lives could be snatched from them in a heartbeat, and there'll be no consequences. Makes me just as angry as I was when I organized in the Black Liberation Army. And
real quick, what I was gonna ask you, not to cut you off, but definitely I wanna, if you don't mind, get into decentralizing the police, get a little bit into what community control public safety is, because I think that folks like Ashley, and of course Melina, Mama Fia, and I, we already on board, but a lot of the quote unquote, and I hate to even say victims, because that's I don't think she's a victim because she's still fighting, right? So
survivor.
I think a survivor, yeah. I think that we have to introduce some solutions, and I think that they should push, because when folks are talking about things like a referendum, there's been a referendum for Cop City, but there should be a referendum for community control of public safety. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that's necessary.
Well, if we know that the Cop City struggle in the Atlanta area, was the endorsement of the concept of a police training facility on public property was endorsed by the Atlanta City Council. It was endorsed by Black elected officials who supposedly represented the interests of the Atlanta community. And this goes back to who we choose to lead us, who we choose on the local level. If all politics is local, then the idea and the notion of community control of public safety is a local issue. Because community control of public safety, as we conceived it then and as it is conceived now, meant that many of these voting districts will also be public safety districts in which the community would elect their representatives, their activists, or their representatives to a police community public safety control board that would have the power to fire, hire, and investigate policing their communities, that will be able to determine policing policies in each individual district. Because in every district in the Black community, the so-called crimes of opportunity, the so-called predominant crimes, are not all the same. Some communities have a high car theft rates. Other communities have high drug violations on their streets. So each community should be able to determine how the police their communities. And also the decentralization of the police means that we should remove the power of elected officials like the mayor to choose who the police chief is, to hand pick the police chief, which is basically hand picking his goon, handpicking those who support him. The police unions have more power and clout in electoral politics in the urban areas than the Black community does. Mm-hmm. If a mayor running for office has to get the endorsement of the police union, and he's not going to get elected. You see, and so we have to shortchange that. We have to create community control of not only community control of public safety, but decentralization of the militarized hierarchy of the police and their appointment by elected officials who do not necessarily represent the interests of the communities. Look at this piece of shit Adams in New York, who's recently indicted for corruption and manipulation of campaign funds. He was on a private phone call with some of the richest oligarchs in the Northeast who demanded that he do something about the protests against the against the pro-Palestinian demonstrators. It was revealed that this man was taking orders directly from the oligarch. And this is what happens when we have a mayor in a city who, like him, has more invested in the police and in the status quo than they have in the well-being of their communities. So community control of public safety means that the community can control and the policies of the police department in their individual districts, can hire and fire police officers whether they're on probation or not, for egregious crimes against the community. We could declare residency laws or residency clauses for newly graduated police, that the police have to live in the community that they police. Community control of public safety also means that we could create a civil force to handle natural catastrophes that get out of hand, or man-made catastrophes that could happen, like in the recent devastation of hurricanes and natural disasters that have been sweeping the southeast. So community control of public safety is not just rhetoric. It's about bringing people and empowering people to control the armed agents of the state that police. And we can do this. The Black Panther Party got a referendum on the ballot in 1968, precisely for community control of public safety. And the police union in New York spent millions and millions of dollars in advertisements, in influencing the city council, in influencing voters to vote for a community complaint review board, which would consist of appointees by the mayor's office and by the police union to handle complaints of police misconduct. We didn't ask for that. We asked for community control of public safety. We put it on the ballot, and the people were hoodwinked and tricked into voting for a community complaint review board. And that has become the artifice by which the police use today in many cities to hide behind accountability, to hide from accountability from the community, or these community complaint review boards which are toothless and have no power.
Can I ask, Brother Deruba? I think everything you shared is really, really important. And for organizers, a lot of our work has been done around this question of accountability. Every Tuesday here in Los Angeles, we go to the police commission meetings and we lift names of people who are stolen by police. Los Angeles is the police murder capital of the nation. More people are killed by police in Los Angeles than any other place, right? And so we do work around accountability. Every Wednesday, we do a protest in front of what you call the police unions, but it's a proud union worker. I don't see them as a union, right? You pointed out that their job is to put down strikes. They're on the opposite side of working class people at every turn. And so every single Wednesday, we protest the police associations, and our intention is to get them kicked out of the House of Labor. And I think that work is really important. And something else that you got to, and I would love to hear both you and Mama Afia respond to it, is the accountability work is, what did you all used to call it? Survival pending revolution, right? We have to engage these systems that are deliberately, intentionally set up to bring our demise. We have to engage them to push them back from their most repressive form. But ultimately, our answer to police violence has to rest with the people. So how important is movement? And on 022, one of the most beautiful comings together has been when we were all together in Atlanta to do the Stop Cop City work together, Stop Cop Nation work together, right? To talk about how all of these things are connected, from Free Palestine to environmental justice to lifting the names of people who were stolen by police violence. How important is grassroots movement work that's not tied solely to accountability from a system that descends from slave catching, right? How important is grassroots movement work in that? So, brothers,
Absolutely essential.
and then Mama.
It's vital. It's the basis. It's the basis for organizing a community control of public safety. It's only activists like you, yourself, Melissa, and Afia and Kalanji that could bring a relief to sisters and mothers like Ashley, and give them an idea of what type of organizations we have to bring together on the local level to stop these murders, to halt this, to put a stop to it. I think we need to really appreciate that that the empire will deteriorate and collapse from the center, and it's doing that now as we see it. And the more desperate the empire gets, the more violent it gets, the more repressive it gets, and until it lashes out at everybody, at everyone. Everyone is a suspect. Everyone is a potential terrorist to the state. Everyone is a potential criminal in the Black community to the police. And the police have countered this by hiring minorities that look just like us. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was just walking down the street in Atlanta yesterday, and we got cops, that are fat, 5'6", with a pistol on their hip, and they look just like us. And before there was a criteria.
Sister Ashley, as they talk about diversifying, we need more Black cops. Who is Nahum Dorn?
He's Black.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
But the truth is he's blue, but he's
yeah.
We see now that Black faces in high places do not equal Black power or Black influence. I mean, most of the police chiefs in cities that have high homicide rates by police in our community are Black. I mean, look at Kamala Harris. She's running for political office, and she's from the state of California. And I'm quite sure, Melissa, you could quote, verses on Kamala Harris's relationship to the police and her failure to prosecute police murders under her watch as Attorney General. So what is going to be her role if she was elected president of the empire? Yeah. It would be the same role, but instead of that, she would be the nigger on the trigger. And if anything, as the empire collapses, they'll be able to blame it on a Black woman. And say, if it wasn't for this Black woman, the empire wouldn't be in this straits right now. Let's make America great again. You see, and I'm saying that we are at a crossroads right now, and the work of people like Melissa and Kalanji and Afia on the grassroots is absolutely imperative. That we have to educate our people in order to liberate them. I remember during the height of the Black Lives Matter movement that there was one group of one chapter of Black Lives Matter who tried to put community control of public safety on the local agenda. And people in the community were questioning about this, and they said, well, who's going to come when we dial 911? Who do we call when we have a situation in our community? Who do we call? Ghostbusters? We got to call the police. And who shows up? Some knucklehead with a 9mm on his hip, who's totally insecure, who has macho issues. You understand? And we wind up with a dead relative. We wind up with a dead husband, dead
we
son.
just saw that. Yes, Sonia Massey, right? The world was enraged when Sonia Massey, called police for herself. But I think it's a reminder, and I would love Mama Afia to weigh in on this, that police don't keep us safe, right? Police don't keep us safe. So what is the role of movement and community in getting to real public safety?
I appreciate that too, Melina, because the Rube over there talking about the 5'6" fat cop with the pistol on his hip. Call you Melissa. Mama Afia, please help me.
I first of all, I want to express my condolences to Ashley. I I think you could hear my outrage, because at this point I'm just outraged by the escalation of the numbers of folk that the cops kill on an annual basis. Well over 1,000, approaching 2,000 people a year. In 1996, when the Revolutionary Communist Party, led by the campaign led by Carl Dix, began this grassroots data collection, establishing the fact that there is a modern epidemic of police murder. There were less than 500 people being murdered by the cops on an annual basis. At this point in time, in 2023, 1,174 people have been murdered by the state with impunity. And we've got 2 more months to go. There is no reason, given the average number of people that are murdered on a daily basis, to think that it won't reach 2,000 by December 31st.
Can you read that
So
number again? Can you give us that number again?
1,174 people have been murdered by the cops in 2020, between 2023 and 2024.
And we know that that's a drastic undercount, because the numbers are only police shootings. They don't include in custody deaths. If it weren't on camera, George Floyd wouldn't be in that number. Keenan Anderson wouldn't be in that number because they weren't shot. Those are officer involved shooting numbers. Not
McKenzie wouldn't be, because they didn't even have his paperwork on. So, imagine how many other people, not to cut you off.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. Right. So we can safely say that there's at least 2,000 already that have been murdered by the cops. On that basis, I also challenge us to recognize the fact that what we're dealing with is the global system of white domination and full spectrum of violence. Where in Atlanta, you have the Jaylen program, where the Israeli occupation forces are training the local police and are a part of the training and orientation of law enforcement throughout this country for the purposes of maintaining white supremacy globally. We have to begin to function on a global basis with global recognition. When I talk about not getting caught up in bricks and mortar, I'm talking about us beginning to develop a broader global mindset to understand that it's not, in the same way that we came to understand that it's not just Atlanta, but that it's the brilliant work of Renee Johnson, who exposed the fact that there are more than 60 cop cities across this country, that not only is it cop cities in the USA, and cop cities in Palestine, but in France and in South America, for the purposes of protecting and serving the same colonial interests that they serve here in this country, so that we begin to look at things in look at phenomenologically as opposed to incidentally or even materially. And a part of that is us defining, as Melina alluded to, defining what is public safety. What is, in the Kalanji, you referenced some of the misconduct that occurs in our, or was Daruba, that occurs in our community. But when you look underneath them, they're all economic. Whether you're talking about the person who's dealing with the violence of this society by self-medication, or you're talking about the young person who's dealing with the psychological violence of attempting to affirm their personhood by stealing a car, because to be a young man means to drive a car, right? So having internalized the maladies and the malefices of this society and attempting to realize them in order to be able to affirm our dignity and worth. We have to, our solutions not only must be capacity building, self-determinative for ourselves, but they must lead to self-governance. No police. Abolish the police along with the prisons. Abolishing the police means to provide, to make available those life-affirming resources that are necessary in order to be able to realize our full potential as human beings. Of course, having a car is not a measure of humanity. So it means we got to begin to change values. And that is the educational process that we have to begin to engage and to make that the essence of the solution to this onslaught, to the genocide to which we have been subjected for the past 500 years. We have struggled in innumerable ways, whether it's music, art, healthcare, the whole range of activities that the African community has developed despite the lack of resources, despite the violent onslaught under which we live, in order for us to be able to survive. So the challenge is for us to redefine. Those citizen review boards and all, that's, there is no evidence, and they've been in existence for 50 years. There is no evidence that they have any substantive consequences on the quantum and quality of life of anybody that's impacted, especially not Black people. So what we're talking about is, at a minimum, as Martin Luther King put it, a revolution of values that manifests itself in such a way that the practices that people engage in, that the institutions under which we suffer, are dismantled.
Yeah, no, we definitely we appreciate, for folks who are checking this out. Again, this is the Rise Up Morning Show here, Black Power Media Reloaded on YouTube. If it's your first time stopping through, make sure you like, subscribe, do all that good stuff they say in YouTube land. I want to say too, because you talked about the connection between Gilly and local law enforcement here in Georgia. Gilly is the Georgia International Law Enforcement Exchange, which is the exchange between the Israelis and the local police here, the state police, the local police, the police union, so on and so forth. It's been going on for the past 31 years. I also want to point out, when we're talking about cop cities is bigger than just the nice little, fly name that folks came up with. It is an extension of the police state. It is imperialism. It is international. It is not a coincidence that Cop Cities was first launched here in the state of Georgia, because this is also where the School of Americas is held. And right. This is also how that international connection is made. So the same folks who are murdering Palestinians are murdering Africans here in the streets of the U.S. and in Haiti and in Colombia and all sorts of places. So I wanted to point that out. We're joined now by a young activist, Irina Amuzu. I'm sorry. She is out of Colorado Springs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And welcome to the platform. If you don't mind, tell the folks, a little bit about who you are and why you're here today.
Thank you all for having me so much. Thank you to Kalanji and Melina for hosting. Thank you to my elders for being on here, and condolences to Miss Ashley Mackenzie Smith. Your story broke my heart. I am an organizer in Southern Colorado, particularly Colorado Springs. I work with our Stop Cop City, Colorado Springs, and also Southern Colorado Black and Pink. Black and Pink as a national organization is a prison abolition organization that writes to folks that are incarcerated, focusing on queer, Black and Indigenous people of color inside. But we also have a Southern chapter that I volunteer with a few other people in Colorado Springs. And we've been working with our Stop Cop City here since about November, or really September of last year, when the city introduced a ballot measure 2A, which first introduced the concept of a police training center here that would be held in Colorado Springs. And they were using this ballot measure to fund what would be the beginning, right, some seed money for this police training center, using some of the taxes that came out of the folks who live here. We successfully defeated that ballot measure. It's literally 10 organizers in the Springs versus the entire city, and their money and their funds. After we defeated that measure, however, the mayor, Yemi Mobolade, put out a statement saying that they would figure out a way to fund this training center, right? To fund this cop city. So our work is not done. Right now, there is nothing officially on the books. However, we know that their intention is to continue with this build, and their intention is to figure out to get this funding. I don't know where it is yet. I would also like to point out that Colorado Springs is a highly militarized city. We have multiple military bases here. It is a centralized force for military to come all over to train. And so we're not just looking at our Colorado Springs Police Department, we're also looking at a high military police presence that would be training at the center. We're looking at folks coming in from different cities, right? Not just from the Springs, but Pueblo, from Denver. And so if this were to happen, of course, we're joining Stop Cop Nation to stop all these cop cities being built. We have a very good chance of making sure that we stop it right now, right? Because we're on the ground level of this development. And of course, context, Colorado Springs CSPD is connected to all of Colorado. So we're looking at the Denver Police Department, which of course has their own history of murders. CSPD has murdered Devon Bailey in 2019. It's connected to Aurora Police Department, where I grew up, where I lost a childhood friend of mine that was murdered by Aurora Police Department right after he turned 18 years old. Elijah McClain was murdered the same year, the year after my friend was murdered. This is not isolated, right? Genocide is the function. Genocide is the purpose. And as people have mentioned here before, this is international, and we're thinking about how Palestine is part of this as well. We're thinking about the military forces here and how our police forces are trained by the IDF and vice versa, that death exchange. And I think Colorado Springs particularly is like a really hot spot of the mix of all these things, the police, the military, the international forces of this. And our mayor and our city is trying to find a way. We as organizers are doing the best we can, and today I'm joining your day of action. We have a rally if you're in the Colorado area at 10 a.m. At the city council. But that's kind of what I'm about. That's why I'm here, and that's what we've been doing.
Okay, we definitely appreciate you adding on real quick, because I think that Stop Cop Nation has been mentioned a few times during this show, during this program today. If you could give us for folks who are just tuning in and don't know anything about what we're talking about, and they're probably like, well, what the hell is a Stop Cop Nation? If you could tell us what Stop Cop Nation is, and also, that would be a good start.
Nice. So, like in terms of like timeline, Stop Cop Nation really came out of the multiple cop city projects that were popping up all over the nation. Really, the pinpoint was Atlanta. South Cop City, Atlanta, whose organizers there have really connected folks across the nation whose cities are trying to recreate what has been happening in Atlanta, and recreate this like these military training centers that are direct response to 2020 uprisings. And I think to like place it in that like contextual, in that context, right? Like there were the uprisings, and in the direct response was more militarization, more training, quote unquote, more of these large centers where police from anywhere can come and train to basically continue the murder of brown and black people who are disenfranchised. And so Stop Cop Nation is an effort, from my understanding, to really unite us and join us and connect our communication, our tactics, what are we doing, right, to not fight in isolation, and to make sure that folks across the nation are aware of what's happening where, if it's not in their city, in other cities, how can we exchange help with each other? The United States death complex is all connected. They share information. They know each other, right? And I think Stop Cop Nation is a good way for us and a platform for us to just get connected with each other, to support our efforts and to share information.
No doubt. We definitely appreciate that. As we move towards a close, we know that there are a number of different protests, teachings, virtual panels, films, and all kinds of things going on in over 25 plus cities across the U.S. today. Today's the day that we wear black and we go out and we educate and attempt to inspire, agitate, or whatever we have to do to remind folks that there's a domestic war going on and that it hasn't stopped. And as Deruba pointed out, without saying, Deruba said this has been going on all of his life. And, if you watch this platform, you know that he turned 80 a couple months ago. So if it's been going on his entire life, and we know it's been going on before he got here and before his parents got here and probably before his grandparents got here, it's going to continue as our grandchildren are born. You know what I'm saying? I know this because my grandchild is 17 now. So the fact that this thing is an ongoing process, and, we still have to say, okay, 28, 29 or so years later, we're still talking about, this October 22nd coalition. We don't need a 30th year. We need to tear this shit down. That's what needs to happen, but don't mind me. I'm just a ranting, raving lunatic. I want to start with Melina and go clockwise. And thank you, Melina, for co-hosting the day. And we got to give it up to Melina because she's over in Cali right now. Yeah. And she got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to rock with us. And I know she probably thought I lost my mind for even asking. But hey, man, what we going to do?
Look, what was my answer though? Well, I guess I don't have no conflicts at 5 o'clock in the morning. At 5 o'clock in the morning, ain't nothing else scheduled. So I'm grateful to be here. And grateful for this conversation. I said I kept looking down, especially when Brother Deruba and Mama Afia were speaking, because I'm writing down these beautiful pieces of knowledge and understanding. And I just want to say thank you to both of you, especially for putting so much time. Sometimes they talk about the young people, and sis, I'm grateful for the work that you're doing in Colorado, and we can all aspire to be 80 and still be putting it all in for the liberation of our people. And so just very, very grateful for you all. And I know today is the National Day to Stop Police Brutality. That's meant to be a reminder of the war that we're engaged in, but it's not meant to pretend like we can stop police brutality just by doing something on October 22nd every year, right?
Right.
This is a coming together and a reminder of the war that we're in, that Jaylen McKenzie's spirit demands that we fight. Brother Deruba mentioned that Sister Ashley didn't ask for this fight. It was thrust upon her, and it's our obligation to lock arms with her and all of the other mamas and parents and siblings and aunts and uncles and loved ones who were thrust into this, because we don't know when it could be us, right? And it is us because we're all connected. But I'm grateful to be in this movement with you, Brother Kalanji. I wish we had a little more time, even though I'm tired. But I think the way that you lay out the role of cop cities and what this means, militarized policing means, and where it comes from, and why we have to stop it is hugely important. So I hope you tweet out that podcast, because not everybody's going to read your book, but everybody can turn on the podcast that you have on Pluto Media with you and Dr. Joy James, which I've played for my class and shared with my class. It's hugely important that we understand what's happening and that we commit ourselves to the struggle to end police brutality and really topple the system, right? That's what abolition is about. And Mama Fia, thank you so much for reminding us we have to be abolitionists.
Right on. Definitely appreciate that, Melina. And you can check that, and shout out to our sister Liliana as well on that podcast that you mentioned with Pluto, dealing with Beyond Cop Cities. And if you don't have it already, make sure you get the book, Beyond Cop Cities. That's a great book, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Mama Fia, what's going on matter of fact, Melina, what's happening in LA today? There's
all day. So my tiredness is not just for right now. All day long, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning, we have a press conference in front of police headquarters. Then we are going to city council where they're trying to appoint a new police chief. And then we are protesting in front of the police associations that Brother Deruba was lifting up as a force of evil. And then we're closing by going to our school board meeting to remember that they're trying to turn these schools into cop cities, right? And so we're standing with our young people to close out the day. So people can follow BLM Los Angeles on Instagram and BLM LA on Twitter for the full kind of breakdown of the day. So we start at 9 a.m. We'll be done probably around 6 p.m. And it's a full day. We'll feed you in the middle of the day. So if you come to the End Police Associations, we won't have no donuts, but we'll have some sandwiches. We try to keep the piggies away, right? So we'll have some sandwiches for folks, and look forward to being there and in solidarity with 25 cities around the country. And people can follow all of that work at stopcopnation.com.
No doubt. Mama Fia, Greenville, South Carolina, what's happening today?
All right. Well, we are going to go to the prosecutor's office here. It's called the solicitor, and present him with the 21 names of folk who have been murdered by the cops here in South Carolina. We will post them in front of the county courthouse and do a memorial walk from the courthouse to the law enforcement center, jailhouse, where we will plant crosses memorializing and celebrating the lives of those murdered by the cops. Those crosses will be planted in the same dirt where they have the memorial to their law enforcement officers. Our position being, and the symbolism being, that our people are equal value, equal significance, that the cops hold no special place in this society, but that it is the citizens, it is the folks who make this place work that are to be celebrated, to be memorialized. So we will be doing that this evening. In addition to banner drops, we have a special banner drop for Clemson University, where there is a proposed Cop City with a union between the university, Clemson University, and the city of Clemson, along with the county sheriff's department, where the plan is to pool their resources to have a cop city here in South Carolina. We will, of course, begin organizing. We have students from Clemson who will be participating in today's activities as we do our banner drops throughout the city and county of Greenville. I want to urge people to go to StopCopNation.com and to October22nd.org for more information about the basis of these activities, where they are, so that you have the opportunity to participate in. Thank you, Kalanji and Melina and my other colleagues on this panel for this opportunity and for the work that each of you is doing. Thank you.
No doubt. Thank you, Mama Fear. And keep up the solid work. You've definitely been consistent. And you was right what you said about me organizing in Atlanta. So I might.
You need to come on home, boy.
Come on now. You try to get me lynched. That's what's up. Ashley, what's happening around these parts? Right. What's happening here at home? Mama Fear trying to take me back to Greenville. You're on mute right now, Ashley. Help me stay here. You're on mute. You're on mute.
We're the best here in Atlanta.
Okay.
Boy.
Ashley said it. Good.
So today we have Day of Remembrance, where we're gonna honor and remember 10,000 plus lives that has lost their lives to police brutality. So out there at 7:00 p.m. today at Centennial Park, you will see over 10,000 names of police brutality fatalities from across the world. So
right on. Well, hey, we appreciate you all. I know Mama Melina has another show she has to go to, so we appreciate you coming on, riding shotgun with me today. My crew played hooky. None of my Rise Up Morning Show folks here. I don't know where they at. Y'all fronting, man. I don't know what's happening, man. But we're gonna talk about that the next meeting. Anyway, I'm just joking. Everybody, they'll be live and direct today. But Melina, definitely appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
No doubt. Daruba, you can close us out with
Well, I just want to close out by saying, Melina, Mama Afia, and the young sister from Colorado, y'all keep on keeping on. And I just want to remind people that Cop City is tied to the military-industrial complex. That it's the economy of war that the United States has thrived on its whole existence, that fuels the militarized police, that fuels the reactionary right-wing obsession with guns and violence, and that this dovetails into United States military diplomacy and coercion around the world. So this is an economic situation as well. The United States needs to have, it's the major arms supplier to the world. It interacts with law enforcement and international intelligence agencies around the world to hold people of color and African people in thrall to white supremacy and the white supremacist construct of globalization that we call it globalization today, which I call New Age imperialism. So I just want to emphasize this. This is economical. This is economics of empire as well. So shout out to all of the activists who are organizing in their communities, who are taking this fight to the enemy on the streets. And long live the spirit of African people. Long live the resistance struggle of the Palestinians, and long live the idea and the concept of our humanity versus the inhumanity of white supremacy and capitalism.
No doubt.
Long live the spirit of Yahya Sinwar.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So we will catch you all in the whirlwind. Check us out every Tuesday through Friday right here on the Rise Up Morning Show. Also, make sure you tune into the platform, Black Power Media Reloaded, because we reloaded. We're going to catch y'all later on. Y'all be safe out there. Stay strong out there. Salute.
Haiti, fragile nation, land of the unexpected. You ask for more from Heritage, and now it's coming. Get ready for an unforgettable experience on Saturday, November 16th at 7 p.m. at the Coral Springs Center for the Arts. Join Yol de Rose and an incredible lineup of talented artists as they present a powerful play that proudly showcases the history of our beloved country, helping us to truly understand. Heritage is a collective effort involving more than 40 artists and technicians, all coming together to bring Haiti's rich cultural heritage to life. 10 remarkable voices will embody the roles of 10 brave female ancestors who made immense sacrifices in the battle for Haiti's liberation. The cast includes Carole Demesma, Laurence Durand, Béatrice Quebro, Tiffane, Misty Jean, Donald Z. Theodore, Tafami Soleil, Darlene Desca, Fatima, Annie Alert, Riva, and Richelle Guillaume, all reenacting the pivotal roles these women played in building our resilient nation, Haiti. Heritage is the original creation of Yol de Rose in collaboration with Florence Jean-Louis Dupuis for stage and production design. Historical research conducted by Baina Belot. Choreography by Jean-René Dessoin. Heritage, Saturday, November 16, 2024, 7 p.m. at the Coral Springs Center for the Arts. This is the real deal. Tickets available now online or on site of the Coral Springs Center for the Arts. Heritage, don't miss out.
Life gets harder. The conditions grow more unsustainable in every way. The price of food has doubled. Food stamps, EBT, can barely cover the cost of groceries for the month.
Those of us with housing are dealing with incoming rent increases as the landlords continue to consolidate power, or dealing with shitty living conditions as our buildings fall apart. NYCHA continues to be allowed to crumble in an attempt to force us out in order to privatize.
Those of us who are unhoused are stuck in violent shelters that treat us like shit. Property management companies are withholding apartments and making the criteria for getting a home itself a human right, dependent on credit scores and tax returns. A lot of times they won't even accept our Section 8 vouchers. Housing lotteries are bullshit in a city where most buildings sit empty as investment properties for rich people.
Yo, the jobs available to us, my nigga, they barely pay a livable wage. They are Amazon warehouses or fast food delivery apps, Uber if you got the right kind of car, or as a security guard, or worse yet, join the motherfucking NYPD. And if you got a college degree, you come out into a world where ain't enough jobs for the amount of people that these diploma mills are pushing out. And then we out here hustling from gig to gig to make ends meet. And it costs $6 a day to travel anywhere in the city on mass transit. And if you hop on the train, it means that cops can shoot and kill you. Police are everywhere, son. And they stay hunting us down. Stay hunting us down to meet their quotas. Their only real task is to fill up the prisons with poor black and brown people and collect fines for the city of New York. Fuck them.
The healthcare is mediocre, and the desperately needed services for those struggling with mental illness continue to fail, leading many into the cages of prisons and jails.
La gente se defiende.
The people fight back.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one.
Well, the battle is to love yourself and function in society where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares, mentally frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and they're babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed on my head, spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings that they pull. Then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces winners on the field. Feeble and foolish. What tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Well, we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Where my inner me really a mirror for the galaxy. New time, brand new paradigms, new contracts to sign. They thought that this would all be televised, though it's happening right before our very eyes. It's on the inside, with their guns cocked. When that rock drops, standing on the rooftop, praying that the mountaintop can live inside the valley. People tell me the reward is somewhere off in heaven, like heaven's only in the sky. Like chariots are swinging, like God is something separate from yourself, from your wealth, from your lover, from your neighbor. Oh, your savior is coming in your own name, coming with the face the same. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Where we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Where my enemy is really a mirror for the galaxy.